Welcome to a live reaction show here on One Soccer. Hope you're watching here on our YouTube channel and get in some of your questions and some of your reactions. Andy Petrillo alongside Jordan Wilson, and we have former goalkeeper John Conway joining us here as well. And gentlemen, the reason why we're jumping on this and doing a live Q&A, of course, is because of the recent comments that were made by the Canadian men's national team head coach Jesse Marsch. All the coaches for the Final Four of Concacaf Nations League, they are in California right now. They're at SoFi Stadium. They were being asked a bunch of questions leading up to this tournament. And this is what's really exciting is Canada back in the Final Four, another chance here to win a trophy, guys, as we know. But at the end of the day, there's still a lot of this stuff going on politically between Canada and the United States of America, and Jesse Marsch was not going to be able to escape any kind of questions when it comes to what's going on away from the field of play. The thing is, though, guys, Jesse Marsch didn't shy away from it at all because he was asked about it, especially as it relates to Hockey Four Nations and what we just saw there. So we're going to play the entirety of his clip when it came to his response to this in particular, when it comes to the politics right now between Canada and the USA.
These international tournaments for Canada mean something different now. And, you know, as an American, I'd like to address the 51st state discourse, which I find unsettling and frankly insulting. Canada is a strong, independent nation that's deep-rooted in decency, really. And it's a place that values high ethics and respect, unlike the polarized, disrespectful, and often now hate-fueled climate that's in the U.S. And look, Canada values a lot of fairness and unity. It's a place that I've learned as the national team coach where people really believe that their differences make them stronger. And honestly, it's one of the things that I've enjoyed the most about our team is that they exemplify this as human beings and as a team. And look, they're almost all first and second generation Canadians coming from different heritage and cultures, but they uniquely are incredibly proud to be Canadian, to represent their country, to give everything to each other and the love that they have for each other and playing for their country. And to me, this sounds very familiar to years past, right? So for me right now, I couldn't be prouder to be the Canadian national team coach. And I found a place where that embodies for me the ideals and morals of what not just football and a team is, but what life is. And that's integrity, respect, and the belief that good people can do great things together. And so if I have one message to our president, it's lay off the ridiculous rhetoric about Canada being the 51st state. As an American, I'm ashamed, right, of the arrogance and disregard that we've shown one of our historically oldest, strongest, and most loyal allies. But one thing's for sure. Okay, when I look forward to a month from now, is I know that this will fuel our team. The mentality we have, the will we have to play for our country, the desire we have to go after this tournament in every way and to show on and off the pitch exactly what Canadian character is. So obviously I really look forward to the challenge of playing Mexico, but the tournament as a whole, and I guarantee that our team will be ready.
There is a lot to digest there. Lay off the ridiculous rhetoric of Canada being the 51st state. Jordo, I'll start with you. I mean, other than the obvious, which is he was asked about politics, and instead of taking the route of no comment or let's stick to soccer, he chose to give that answer, which is making a lot of people happy, I guess Canadian fans in particular happy. But why do you think he felt it necessary to not shy away from that question?
I think it's just representing the times, right? Like you kind of already alluded to it with the hockey match that just happened, or hockey game that just happened a little bit ago. And it's the time where you're looking to kind of galvanize a group. But I just want to say too, looking at this team and Jesse Marsch, I don't know if the climate and what's going on right now in the world between Canada and the US, like, is going to galvanize them anymore. Any Canadian player, any Canadian that loves this game, any Canadian in general, has so much pride. And when you want to talk about specifically about this Canadian men's national team, the chip on the shoulder for all of them, if you look really closely in all of their stories, it's like oh, you guys still play footy? You guys play soccer? Where?
Mhm.
Who? Like the disrespect that has naturally just come with the progression of them stepping up is always there. Like Jonathan David, a name right now. Do you think 10 years ago someone would be like a player from Canada would be a top 5 goal scorer in Europe? Like it wouldn't happen. People didn't associate Canada and soccer with success. So I think for Jesse Marsch going into this week and all that happened, it felt like the perfect time to double down and to really say, I've been a part of this country, this culture, and it might have been disrespectful from the country that he grew up in and that he represents. But it just felt like the best time. But again, I don't think this team needs any more reinforcements. I think they're ready to go.
How do you feel about it, John? I mean, Jesse is American, right, from Wisconsin, and he obviously talked about being ashamed that he felt like this was happening to America's best and greatest and most loyal ally. But why do you think he chose to make these comments?
He has an opportunity to use his platform to say what he feels. And Jesse's a smart guy. And he went to Princeton, and he'll tell you he's a smart guy when you get him into a room. But, he's has an opportunity, and he brought it out. I guess I have to preface all this and say that, I am American. I'm also an immigrant to this great country. And I couldn't agree more with how he described Canada and how he feels about this country, because I feel the same way. This country is an amazing place and provides lots of opportunity for lots of people who come here. And I think he hit the nail on the head on exactly the feelings that Canadians have right now, that, there's no reason for this rhetoric, and there's no reason for the way the president is talking about this great country and a neighbor. And I think it's just really interesting. I mean, we talked about foreign nations, but you'd be a fool not to see how it riled up the team. It riled up not only the hardcore hockey fans, but the casual fans to get into that game. And I think it's a good time for Jesse to do that. I think it's a good time for him to try and build, a fan base in this country and get the country around this team, because we're getting close to 26, and the country needs to be galvanized around this team to help them in their success in the World Cup.
Yeah. Well, you're right. I mean, Four Nations, anyone who was watching that hockey tournament, what turned into, I don't know what this tournament's going to be about, because of the political climate, suddenly turned into the biggest thing, must watch, highest number, viewership, you name it. The way the Americans felt about representing their flag, the way the Canadians in particular really felt about representing their flag. And I also think, Jesse's a smart guy, and he gets ahead of it. Yes, he was asked about it, but at the end of the day, guys, we both know, no matter how much you want to sit here and say, let's separate politics from sport, he got asked about it. So he's not going to shy away. He's not going to say no comment. He's going to have something properly prepared. And you can see right now, we have people tuning into this live Q&A, and they are all loving what he said, because you can't shy away. At the end of the day, it's something you're going to be asked, and it's something that people expect an answer for. So I guess the other thing is, now that he said everything, so many people are writing in already, glad that he said it. We need more prominent figures to speak out about it. More people should be like Jesse. Thanks, Jesse. Set the record straight. We've put a lot of those at the bottom there. So I guess, Jordan, my next question is, do you think his statements have changed anything about the way you view him as Canada's head coach?
It reinforces many things, and all of them are positive. I mean, I've spoken about Jesse Marsch and the fact that he came in. I will say, when initially he was announced as coach, I was skeptical just based off of tactics, not him as a person. But I love that he's leaned into this beautiful country. Andy Petrillo and the handsome John Conway. I would purposely, when I came from Denmark to Toronto or England to visit family, or Toronto, purposely wear a Roots tracksuit or a Toronto Maple Leafs hat or Raptors hat. Anything to let everyone know that I'm sniffing on that maple syrup, and I'm so proud to be Canadian. And guess what? Maybe he doesn't have a Roots tracksuit, but we should send him one. But Jesse Marsch is also sipping on that Kool-Aid, and he knows what's here. And he knows that the Canadians were hardworking people that are patriotic, and we're actually darn good footballers as well. So I love that he's going about it, and that he's doubled down, and the fact that he's traveling. He hasn't just sat in Toronto or gone to other places. That he's actually traveled this country and met people and been with fans, so he can actually live that out and speak about it. So of course, when you're going to ask him a question, or when you're looking at him now and he gets to speak about Canada, he won't shy away from it, because he's lived it for the past few months. and he's seen the good and the bad, but mostly the good in terms of where this nation could go. So I think for me, he gets an invitation to the cookout. Like, he's still there. He gets he was there in the beginning, but it just reinforces it, Andy. Like, you can't say enough great words about the character of Jesse Marsch moving forward.
Well, you got to remember here, Jordan, as well, is that, he had a little bit of an appetizer of the Canadian culture when he coached in Montreal.
Yeah, great point.
So he got a good sense of sort of that, and a good sense of Quebec, for that matter, which, as an immigrant here, you learn that Quebec is sort of different than a lot of the other provinces based on the French dialect, French language, and how they view themselves. But, he got a good taste of everything. And now he's here and implementing those things and the stuff he learned in Europe, traveling from different countries and different cultures, and really is buying in and getting everybody to buy into how he's doing things and the culture here, and trying to bring out the best of these players and really driving that home.
I think too. Sorry, you go, Andy.
Well, I was to your point, everything about Jesse Marsch. So we know that last summer when the U.S. was also looking for their new head coach, and there was a lot of speculation of who it could be. And, everyone's like, Jesse Marsch, even though he just took the Canadian job, would he entertain once again being interviewed and going on over there? And of course, he came out, got ahead of it even then and said, no way am I ever doing that. Like, I'm staying here. I'm with Canada. I signed on. If there were any people who thought that he was lying just a little bit, who thought maybe, little doubt, it's quashed. Is it not completely quashed? The guy is dedicated to Canada. So has it changed a whole lot, for me and maybe other people? Maybe not, because the guy has always said he was committed. But I just think when you do this whole full circle of, obviously, Pochettino ended up being the head coach of the U.S., but there was a lot of speculation. He came out and say, not going to happen. And if you doubted him then, I just think there's no way you're doubting him now. There cannot be any doubters anymore about his commitment to coaching this national team.
Yeah, because when you lean in the locker room and then you lean in the press and your day-to-day life, that ends up being who you are as a person. Like, you can't fake it. At some point, you're going to get found out. And he's doubled down in both aspects. And John, you've been a player, also been in the locker room. Like, every margin you have to go and compete. And whatever you do, sometimes I would say to certain players, like, I don't think you're on it. I think you fell off. Like, as a player, I'm saying that to another player because I want them to be tenacious, right? Now you see an American coach come to Canada, bleed Canadian. Like, if you're a Canadian player that always wants to prove themselves and have a chip on your shoulder, what more do you need? Like, in this time as well, with all that's going on, like, this is the perfect example of a guy switching over to the better side.
Clearly, the players know that he has their back. Not only their back as people and players, but their back as Canadians and what they stand for. And I think that's value add no matter what, no matter how you shake it out.
Yeah, so it also is worth noting, guys, because it's been brought up here. Brian Hayden brings it up. Who wants a USA versus Canada final now? Well, you're right, because first it's going to be Canada versus Mexico and USA Panama in the semifinals on March 20th. You can watch it right here on One Soccer. So yeah, it's being set up for a Canada USA final, March 23rd, SoFi Stadium. So you're right. Like, all of this now is just pushing towards that day, making it even juicier than it was before. Claudio D wants Jesse Marsch to run for prime minister now. So here we go. This is how happy, he's making Canadians. No, see, if he becomes a politician, then we're not going to like him. No, he can't be a politician. He can't be prime minister.
Jesse.
So here's the thing. Craig writing in, and this is a pretty good question. I think I already have my thoughts on it, but does it hurt his chances of coaching in the U.S. in the future? I kind of know how I'm going to answer this. How do you think you're going to answer it, Jordan? Or John, you want to go?
John looks very
good. Listen, I don't think he cares.
Thank you. I was going to say that.
He doesn't care. Listen, he doesn't need to go back to the U.S. anytime soon. Listen, he was felt spited in the initial interview process years ago on how U.S. soccer treated him when he went in. And I think that's kind of lingered. And I think you see in some of his comments, especially today, I think maybe it's the 4 best coaches to ever coach in this region with these teams. he's taking a stab at U.S. soccer saying, listen, you had a chance to get me years ago, but you didn't handle it the right way. He does not want to walk back into the U.S. He's going to spend his time here, and if he has another opportunity, it's going to be in Europe.
I think to echo John's sentiment, and Jesse Marsch, I'm not even putting words in his mouth, he said it. He basically alluded to the fact that Canada has far more upside coaching them going into 2026 than all the chaos that might be going on in the States with their team and the expectations and the media. Like, you're taking a team that hasn't won a game at a World Cup, but that has the team to go and do it. They just need that push. They need that right guidance. They need a certain mentality to build them up the right way. Jesse Marsch is that guy. When you look at a perfect marriage between team and coach, it is Canada and Jesse Marsch. So I don't think he cares. To John's point, to your point, the fact that he is American and maybe they fumbled the bag and he's not there. Because I think when you're looking at a chance to go and make history, Canada's the option every day of the week.
And we never know how people are going to react, because Craig brings up another point, because he's like, well, what about also an MLS job in America? And I think the thing is Jesse Marsch, it's been a very long time now, guys. It's probably going on a decade. He hasn't lived in the US. So to John's point, I don't think he cares. He hasn't lived there. He's happy being with Canada. And even if he were to go back in 4 years' time, there's going to be a change, no? Which means there's also going to be a temperature change in America if that's the case, no?
Yeah.
That's just kind of what I'm saying. Who knows? But either way, you don't know what the future's going to hold, to your point, whether he even wants to come back to North America in any way, shape, or form, whether he gets another job in Europe, or whether he stays with Canada even beyond the World Cup, right? So if you're a player, and you kind of touched on a little bit here, Jordan, when your coach comes out and says these types of things, I mean, the Canadians are motivated enough. We keep going back to Gold Cup 2000, the last time the men's program brought home a trophy. They know they need a trophy, Jordan. They know they need a trophy. But now you got your coach turning around going, Canada, Maple Leaf, proud, free country. Like, how are you feeling now when you put that badge on?
I mean, I know it adds to already the motivation that they had, but I want to go a step further, or maybe I guess a step back, and reflect on the feeling, the 2-0 loss, Nations League final, when those players are coming off the pitch and there's a bit of, you could say, disgruntled behavior, but like almost they're looking at each other and they know that they had more to give, but they didn't show it on the day, and the Americans were better. I think as a former player, as just a competitor in life, like, this, Andy, if we did a thumb wrestle, me and you are going to battle to the death, because both of us are competitive.
Yes.
We want to win.
True.
John's the same way. Everyone does. They're gonna get their revenge if they beat Mexico. The U.S. are probably going to go through. They're going to get that chance again. A few years later, maybe a bit wiser, a team that might have a plan B, go and get to play the Americans. There's nothing more that you want than to knock out the best on the biggest stage that you can. So I think this adds to the rhetoric of Jesse Marsch being behind his team. But the fact of the matter is they still haven't knocked off the big dogs, which are the Americans in this region. So that is all they need. They're salivating. They're chomping at the bit to get back to that place to take their crown.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's the other thing, though, John, as a coach, because you want to I find it's got to be a fine balance, because you want to rile up your players to the point where they do want to run through a brick wall for you, but not to the point where their emotions completely take over. And now their sense on the field goes out the window, right? How do you manage that?
I don't think they're going to have a problem in this first game against Mexico. I think the first game against Mexico, everything will be in check. It'll be just like the disgruntled neighbors game, of the Mexicans and the Canadians just mad at the U.S. and they'll get through. And I think they'll keep their emotions in check. It'll be in the final where there's going to be a real sense of tempering sort of the political climate. I'm sure comments will be made leading into that from whoever, because Donald Trump doesn't waste an opportunity to get on board and get some publicity for any reason that he can. And if the U.S. is playing Canada in a final in LA, he'll jump on board. And, they'll just have to temper those emotions and keep the boys locked in to go out and put in a performance that they need to have, and a performance to win a trophy. I mean, at the bottom line, they need to win some trophies. And I think it's very important to lift the trophy going into 26. And this is a prime opportunity that they have to take advantage of.
Guys, watch Panama go out and win this all. Like Panama's like, yo, there's 4 of us.
Good team, man.
Fourth.
Good team, Panama.
I'm telling you,
Wouldn't be surprised.
Honestly,
watch Panama go and win this all. Okay, so by the way, let's just also hear, when it comes to the tournament, as you mentioned, it's going to be Canada versus Mexico first. And this is what Jesse Marsch had to say about that opponent.
And this semifinal and final really place a big importance on our overall competitive development and readiness for 2026. The excitement, I think, the challenge of getting here, and then the excitement of who the opponents are, I think adds to the prestige of what this tournament is becoming. And winning this trophy will be no small task for any of the nations here. And certainly for us, we know first with Mexico, the level of respect that I have and we have for the game in Mexico, for what Javier has accomplished with the national team, with the kinds of players that he has, the passion that they have for the sport in their country. We know in all ways that this will be a major test, one that we're frankly very excited about. You know, I think we need, for our overall development and with an eye on 2026, we need to be in these kinds of matches to test ourselves, to test our teams, to make sure that we're prepared and ready for everything next summer. So I'm really excited, really respectful of all the opponents, and yeah, we're really looking forward to this tournament.
All right. You cannot take the Mexicans lightly. That is for sure. We know that this is a team, Jordan, even when we saw Canada play them last year in a friendly, they're also just very physical and can get under your skin very quickly.
Yeah, and they're going to take the sting out of the game. They're also going to add a little sting and a couple of cheap shots. And I think it just, when I think about Mexico right now, it used to be a powerhouse and a team that would just dominate Canada in ball possession. I think it pays tribute to how far Canada has come. Like, now they're going to play them very differently. They're going to be extremely pragmatic, and at times maybe even just sit and allow maybe Canada not to attack the way they would want to, and have space. You saw in the B-roll right there what happens when you give Canada some space in a high back line, too many players to hurt you. But I'm just excited for this team and how far they've come. Jesse Marsch leading the helmet and leaning into the bread and butter of this Canadian squad, which is the fact that they have speed, which is the fact that they have that chip on their shoulder and they press with that. But like you said, you maybe want to see a Canada and US in the final, but there's still Panama and Mexico that are great teams in this region. And yeah, you got to beat the best to be the best. So we'll see how they do.
Mm-hmm. Let's not forget, guys, they are playing in the States though, right?
Well, they're playing in LA. This is going to be a home game for Mexico. So that's a big task for the Canadians as well, because there's going to be a ton of Mexican fans. Obviously, they're going to be riled up, obviously, with what's going on in the U.S. So, I mean, the Canadians need to be able to withstand sort of the pressure of the moment and the pressure that the fan base of the crowd is going to put on them, because it's going to be pro-Mexican for sure.
Oh, it goes without saying. And I think this is the other thing as we look ahead, and I'll probably end it with this type of conversation, because Claudio D brings up a really good one, right? It's time to evolve one step further into trophy hunters. You cannot be happy anymore with good performances in tournaments. Now, the Canadians have played in hostile environments now. That's the one thing about playing in Copa America. Yes, of course, that was still on American soil, but being able to get to the World Cup as well. They're used to hostile environments. I mean, even the last time they were in the Nations League in the Final Four, that was in Vegas. Once again, that was a crowd that was against them. We know this. But are we at that point now, Jordan, where if we're looking at this year in particular, which is Nation League and Gold Cup, should the Canadians not just be in the finals? And I know with this sport and anything can happen, I'm not trying to disrespect opponents here, but given what they did at Copa America, being the only Concacaf team as well to go as far as they did, make it out of the group, finish 4th overall, should we expect a trophy?
Expect, that's one of those words that anticipate. I don't even know. I'm looking at this team. I know, but I know how you're going to be with me as well. I have to answer your question. And for me, expect, I can't say because it's been that long. Do I think that they have a great chance of doing it? Yes. But I'm ready to lift something too at home. But I can't say expect.
Okay, let me ask you this. Would you be disappointed if they didn't win a trophy?
Now I am.
Expecting them to win. Okay, John?
Well, I mean, listen, use the word expect. I mean, the U.S. expects to win because they've won before and they're the title holders. So they expect to win. The Canadians need to go in and knock the top dog off, and they have an opportunity to do it. I'm not expecting them to win, but I'm anticipating them going out and winning a trophy. They need to do that, as we move into, the Gold Cup and getting ready for 26. As I said before, I think it's vitally important that winning trophies, learning how to win in big games when everything's on the line is vitally important.
Well, you just saw Logan Clarkson as well, another person who's listening on in with this Q&A. Anything less than a win, he considers a failure. The people are speaking, my friend. The people are speaking. So we heard Jesse Marsch's comments, obviously everything that's going on. We know that this is a trifecta. Mexico very much involved in all the political landscape of things that are going on. And Javier Aguirre was also asked about it and just things that have been said and everything that's going on. And this is what the head coach of Mexico had to say.
Para mí no tengo capacidad para hablar de ello ni autoridad. Aunque para mí es el Golfo de México, evidentemente. ¿Eh? By the way.
Agreed.
Well, if you missed it, right? Donald Trump wanted to change it to the Gulf of America. And she's like, it's the Gulf of Mexico. Can you not do that, please? And thank you. So everyone has a wee bit of a bone to pick. All right, guys, this has been great. We've gotten some great comments as well from the fans, the viewers, everyone that's listening in. Obviously, these are people who care deeply about this Canadian squad. They love the fact that their manager has come out and has draped himself in the Canadian flag, poured some maple syrup on himself as well, and then was probably drinking a Timmy's coffee while he was at it.
Poutine,
and he had some poutine. I mean, poutine. Just say it all.
I don't love it.
Whatever is Canadian.
Molson, Labatt, throw those in there. Let's go.
Straight to the beer, baby.
You know what would just make me so happy if Jesse Marsch walked out, with those glasses that have the Canadian flag on them. I don't know how people can see out of them, but if he did that, I'm just saying.
I could see him in one of those moose hats for sure.
The moose hats and the glasses. Jesse, please, if you're listening,
come on, baby.
That right there would make me so happy. Thank you to everyone who was watching and writing in comments and questions. Love it. That's John Conway. That's Jordan Wilson. I'm Annie Petrillo. Remember the Final Four, Concacaf Nations League final right here on One Soccer, March 20th, with the final going on March 23rd. See you later.